up guys, Justin Fuller, and I am outside of a 2022 Honda Odyssey Touring model today. Now, while I would agree with you that it's not as pretty as some of the SUVs out there on the market, much like the Honda Pilot, I would argue that it has more functionality and practicality for large families. So today we're going to compare it to some of the other minivans out there on the market, and then we're going to talk about some general comparisons with the Honda Pilot. So let's hop on in. Alright guys, so let's take a look at what's underneath the hood of this Honda Odyssey and talk about how it competes to what else is on the market, and then of course, how does it relate to some of the other Hondas out there in the lineup. So as I pull you in, I'll let you know that this is a 3.5 liter V6 putting out 280 horsepower. So this is the same engine that you would find in the Honda Pilot, that you would find in the Ridgeline. So any of the 6-cylinder models that land in the Honda family, this is gonna have it. So same as the Passport even. So just something to be aware of if you're looking at other Hondas across the line. So as we look inside of here, I just wanna point out a couple things. You got a fuse box right here. You got your brake distribution. Of course, you've got your windshield wiper fluids. I can get to a dipstick real easy. I've got a lot of room back there. So if I wanna run an amp, a sub, if I wanted to run auxiliary lights or anything like that, I've got the space to do it. I've got my airbox. The one thing I don't like about this car is that you'll notice the battery terminals are trapped underneath the airbox, so you have to take this piece off. Mind you, it's on a rubber grommet that you just pull out, but it is something to deal with if you ever have to jump this car or you want to help somebody else by jumping their car. So I want to take a minute to stop right here and just talk to you. So the first thing I want to do is talk about horsepower. You got 280 horsepower underneath the hood of this one. So let's throw up a comparison to some of the other minivans that are out there in the market so you can get an idea for, hey, where does this car really live when it's competing against those other vehicles? So now that you've taken a look at that and you kind of have an understanding for where it lives, let's talk about miles per gallon. So this car gets 19 in the city and 28 on the highway. So it's doing pretty well as far as a V6 minivan that's fairly heavy. But I want to show you how it competes against those other models out there in the market. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that up on the screen now so that you can get an understanding for where it lives as far as a gas mileage savings vehicle moving around a large family. After that, let's go on to the next topic. All right, so let's do a walk around and talk about some of the features that are on the outside of this vehicle. So the first thing I want to point out is that you do have a 19-inch alloy wheel that you can see right here. So as we move up, you do have body colored mirrors, and they are of course breakaway mirrors with turn indicators in them. So if you bump them in a parking lot, you're going to be safe there. Now, while I'm talking about this does have smart key entry, so I can put my hand on the door handle, it'll automatically unlock, and then I can lock it using this button right here. Now, these back doors are automatic, so I can either pull the trigger and I can open them and allow them to open for me, or know that off the fob, I can also open them using the buttons right here along with the back hatch. So let's continue around the vehicle. I will point out that you have a nice privacy tint here. The front windows have not been tinted from the manufacturer. That's going to be done at the physical dealership that you're getting the car from. Now, in the back, you do have a powered tailgate, so I just want to make sure that that is available and you view that. I'm going to throw this back down so we can talk about some of the things on the back window here. One, you can see down here running along the bumper, these round circles, and that's going to be for your parking sensors that live on the front and back of the car. As we come up, I'll point out that you do have a backup camera right here. It is badged Touring, of course, and you'll always get that logo thrown on the back. And it is trimmed in black now, so a little bit different. And then once again, you do have the privacy glass. And then up top, I do have a small spoiler with a brake light indicator inside of it. So as we move around to the other side, a lot of the same. You got your gas on the left side of this vehicle, which all Hondas will land on the left side. As you move around, you can see, of course, smart key entry. I've got the single door action where I can touch it and pop it open to make life a little bit easier for me. And then as I move around to the front of the car, you do have your LED setup. So as far as your headlights, your daytime running lights, and then your fog lights down low. As we move across, you'll see that it has a black grille with a chrome brow on it. So it is kind of a nice contrasting look. I will point out that this car does offer Honda sensing. So there is going to be a radar down here, which I believe is going to be right behind your emblem. And then up here, you have a camera right in that trapezoid that you can see cut out there in the glass. And I'll explain a little bit about that. So using these two pieces of technology, there's gonna do a couple things. The first being a lane keep assist system. So this is gonna allow you to detect the lines on the road using that camera up there to see the lines on the road. And that way, if you drift to the left or the right, it'll keep you centered. Now, related to that, you also have road departure mitigation, meaning that if I start to drive off the shoulder of the road, it'll give you an audible alert and shake the wheel to say, hey, wake up, pay attention. And then on top of all of that, you have a collision mitigation braking system, meaning that if it's looking like I'm gonna rear in another car, first it'll give me an audible alert, then it'll flash in the dash, and it'll actually start to apply the brakes to help you from rear-ending that vehicle. So there's a lot of things in this vehicle safety-wise that you have to take advantage of. On top of that, you have 8 airbags in this car, so 2 front airbags, also 2 knee airbags, and then 2 side airbags, and then 2 full curtain airbags that run the extent of the front and back glass with rollover sensors on them. So in the event that maybe you don't hit somebody, but you're starting to drive off the road, they will deploy to help protect everyone inside of the vehicle. So you've got a lot as far as safety goes, parking sensors on the back, a camera, parking sensors on the front, and a little bit more that we'll show you once we hop in the car. So I'm here at the back of this Honda Odyssey Touring, specifically the 2022 model, and I'm gonna show you 4 reasons that this car is better than most of the SUVs out there on the market, along with the Honda Pilot. So let's check it out. So the first thing that this car does really well in comparison to a lot of the other minivans out there on the market, and then of course all of the SUVs, including the Honda Pilot, is look at this space that you have here. You have a well that drops down in here. So you're actually getting a lot more cubic cargo space in the back of this vehicle than you would if you're necessarily comparing it to some of the other SUVs and some of the minivans. So that's one of the first things that I want to point out. Now, secondarily, is that I can do this. Not only can I get rid of a second row or third row, I can completely tuck this row away. So now I've got even more cargo space that I can use, and it didn't require me to do a lot other than just fold the seats of the way. So that is a second thing that this car does that you won't find any really SUV that'll do, and most of the minivans out there may offer something similar, but I doubt that you'll find it works this flat and this well and that easy. So let's talk about a third way that this vehicle kind of outshines a lot of the SUVs out there on the market in relation to cargo space. So right now I'm sitting in the second row and I've removed this seat right here, which you can actually see is sitting right over there. But I'm doing this for a reason that I want to show you something. This second row is on a rail system. So what this allows me to do is that if I grab right here, I can actually slide this seat. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch hands here and I'm gonna slide this seat on over so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So at any given point, I can slide this out of the way and then create space where somebody could climb through there, or we could go with the classic captain's chairs. I could slide back and leave that additional room right there. Now, what's really cool about this is I've just removed one of these seats. All 3 of these seats up here are removable. So if I wanted to remove this one and leave full access into that third row and have that extra cargo space to use, I absolutely could. Or I could remove this entire row, then giving me a ton of cargo space to use if I needed to load up, supplies from Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever it may be. Or if I'm going camping and I want to sleep in the back of my Odyssey. So a lot of different functionality options that you have available to you in this vehicle that you won't find out there necessarily in a minivan or in necessarily an SUV, even the Honda Pilot. All right, guys, so as a fourth option that I want to show you why this car kind of outshines a lot of the other minivans and of course the SUVs out there on the market is what I call lounger mode. So I'm going to pull you in here and talk about this. So the first thing you'll notice is I have one of the seats flipped down right now, and then of course I've got the hatch open. So what's cool about this is if I was watching my kids necessarily play a soccer game, a baseball game, or whatever going on out here, what's awesome about this is it gives me this additional shade, but then on top of that, it allows me to really recline. So this seat will actually stay locked to where I can sit back here. I can actually keep my legs up on the leg deal, so it's really a recliner, and I can watch my kids play. I can have the AC blowing on us. I can have the music going. I've got shade here. Shoot, I can keep my cooler sitting right back here and really enjoy myself. You won't find this option in an SUV, and you definitely won't find it in a lot of the other minivans out there. It's another reason that I like the Honda Odyssey. So we already talked about this, but I just want to reiterate what's kind of cool about the Odyssey in the second row. First off, I want to talk about spacing. So I can hop into this car and comfortably sit here. You can see my knee room, and this is with the seat pushed almost all the way back because I was driving it earlier. So as a second row passenger, somebody who's 6'6", I'm comfortable inside of this vehicle. Now, we talked about the rail system that this is on, and you can see right here kind of what you would be climbing over if you were coming through as a captain's chair. And then as I hop out of the vehicle, I want to show you that rail system again. You've got the handles right here, so all I got to do is grab, and then I can slide this over. So now I'm giving the ability to climb through that way additionally if I wanted also, or I could take this seat out or that seat or all 3 seats out and have additional cargo space, just leaving this track system that you see right here. So I would be able to use it for cargo space. So as a second row passenger, I would have the ability to take access and enjoy the Blu-ray player that's right in front of me. Not only is it a Blu-ray player, but it also acts as a CD player. So if you're still holding on to those CDs that you want to be able to listen to in your vehicle, know that you can actually do it in this vehicle. It's actually one of the last vehicles that even gives you that option, right? So as I spin around, there's something I want to point out that's kind of cool on here. This is called the How Much Further app. And you can see it up on the screen there that I have pulled up. So if I have navigation set up, it'll actually tell them. So I've set up a navigation to something that's not too far from here. And it'll actually give them an indicator. So if you have those kids that ask, hey, how much further is it till we're there, that kind of thing. This is a really cool app to take advantage of. Now, they can control it from the back using this control right here, which will give them some different options on functionality to use. As you can see on here, I can access, Spotify, how much further in the settings, and then if there was a Blu-ray in, I could access that additionally too, along with the HDMI input, the USB, and of course the media server. Now, speaking about the HDMI input, that is going to be right down here. So you can see that I have an HDMI input, and next to it I have 2 USB imports. So as far as charging back here, using devices in case your kids are more tablet-based or they want to connect their phones, they can absolutely do that. Now, moving up into the center console, you have an additional USB there, and then the auxiliary input. And then moving up even further, you've got another USB up there with a 115 volt outlet, and then much like a cigarette lighter outlet there too. So a lot of places to plug in inside of this vehicle. So before we leave the second row, there's just a couple kind of ergonomic things I want to point out that really make this car kind of smart and intuitive. The first being is that you have sunshades. It's a simple thing, but they really do make a difference if you got little ones in the back here, as far as using the tent, and then on top of that having these to help keep everything, body and everything cooled off in the car. Now, secondarily, they did something really smart here. So now you have these small pouches up top where these headphones go. They typically used to live in here, and so what would happen is they get pushed in there with everything else and they would get smashed and destroyed and broken, right? So just to remind you, you have 2 sets of these, so a pair here, and then I have a pair over there. Now on top of that, they did one step further. The remote control has its own pocket back here, so it's got a small pocket. Now whether or not it'll make it into that pocket, you've got kids, you can kind of decide that, but it's nice to know that it has a home it can actually go to. So they are making some choices here to make things a little bit more ergonomic and friendly as far as your spacing, your storage, having cup holders, different places, and then of course the center console, which is sitting out there, has some additional cup holders too. Now up top here, I'm gonna talk about this camera here for a moment, and a couple things here when we hop up front, but I just want you to see them so when we visit them, you'll know what they are. Now I rarely get to say this, but as a third row passenger, you're actually very comfortable inside of this car, which is mind-blowing, because anybody who's ever tried to get in a third row knows, typically they're super crowded, they're crunched, and they're not really enjoyable to sit back in, especially because you're worried about air getting to you and different things like that, and then just having room for your legs. So I'm gonna show you how much room I have for my legs right here. So I've got a good amount of leg room back here, and then depending if you don't have that, I could stretch my legs out. So it just kind of depends on what setup you wanna go, which is a great thing about this vehicle. Now, I do want to talk to you about other things that are back here. The first being is that I have an air vent right here next to me to pump nice cool air on me. I've got cup holders. I've got a place where I can plug in headphones. So while I have the 2 up there, I could run wired headphones back here since they're closer to me. And then I have a power outlet on this side. And then over on this side, same thing. I've got a place to plug in headphones, and I've got a USB over there along with my air vent and my cup holders. And then don't forget, I've got the sunshades that I can run here too to help give me that additional shade. Now back here, I have my seat actually reclined, which is kind of a cool feature this car does. So I can recline my seat, but I have this one pushed up. So you have the ability to do both. Now with the headrests up, you'll see that it does take up a lot of the space. So seeing out the back if you leave them up is gonna be a little bit more difficult, but you do have that option to put them down to make it a little bit more visible out the back window of the car. So before we leave the third row, I wanna throw a comparison up so you can understand how this car compares as far as third row leg room to other, minivans out there on the market. So I'm gonna throw that up on the screen so that you can get a general understanding of that. So once you've taken a look at that, I want to do a secondary comparison for you and show you what it compares to as far as the Honda Pilot's third row, so you can get an understanding for, hey, if I'm getting extra room, how much am I getting in this car? Is it really worth it? Do I need that third row? So you can start to really apply this towards your thoughts. All right, guys, so I want to talk to you about the front row. So I've got quite a bit of space up here, and so will my passenger. So as I spin around here, I'll show you that you've got quite a bit of space to work from here, a nice pass through, and then my legs have got a lot of space down here to use. So what I want to do is throw up a comparison to the other minivans out there in the market so you can understand how this car competes against those as far as front row leg space. After that, quickly, I'm just going to throw up what the Honda Pilot is so you can understand how this car competes to something specific in the Honda lineup. So if you're comparing those two cars, you have a general understanding for leg spacing in the front row. All right, so let's talk about the dash of this vehicle and go over some of the different buttons and different things that you have going on. So I'm gonna start you over here on the far left side. So first off, I wanna point out that you can open the sliding doors right here and you can lock them additionally too. So know that you have that ability to do so. This will allow you to pop your tailgate, so you can pop that open at any given point. This right here is vehicle stability assist. This works with your traction control. So in the event that you go on a skid, it'll transfer power to whichever wheel is getting better traction. This is gonna be part of my parking sensors on the front and back of the vehicle. So when these are lit up, it's letting me know that they're on. Now above that is gonna be related to my Honda Sensing. When I press this button, you'll see this menu come on up here, and then you can toggle through and make sure what features you have on. So we talked about some of these earlier, the road departure mitigation. If I drive off the shoulder of the road, it'll give me an audible alert and shake the wheel. Down below that is going to be your blind spot information system, which will light up right here if there's a car in my blind spot. And then if I start to get over anyway, it'll actually beep to let me know, hey, yes, there is a car over there. And then my collision mitigation braking, we talked about this earlier. This is where in the event that it's looking like I'm going to rear in another car in front of me, it'll give me an audible alert, it'll flash in the dash, and then it'll actually start to apply the brakes to help prevent the accident. So a couple different features that you can access quickly right here. All right, so let's talk about the steering wheel and some of the different features and buttons that are on it. So I'm gonna start you on the left side over here. So as we come over here, I just wanna point out first that you have your volume control right here. Now this is gonna be all related to this menu screen that you have right up here. So I'm gonna touch on that in a second. But down here, you've got your Bluetooth options. So to answer a call, to hang up, and then to use voice commands. So whether you're using Hondas to say, you know, call this person, that sort of thing, or if you press and hold and you have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto hooked up, you can access Siri or OK Google. So some different functionality I'll show you here in a minute using this feature too. So the first thing I want to do is press this home button, and this is going to pull up the menu screen that I was just talking about. So from here, I can toggle through all these different menu options that I have available to me. So just to briefly touch on them, I'm not going to go too in depth. You can hide and show additional features here. So know that you have that ability that if you want to turn one off that you never use, you absolutely can do it. Now, below that, you have access to a tripometer. So if you want, you know, current and recent trips and your range, so how many miles you have on this tank of gas, you can see right there I have 411 miles. So I'm going to back out of that screen and just go through. You can access your Bluetooth, your navigation will give you a turn-by-turn direction in the screen right here, which is kind of nice. Now playing will show you what you're listening to. If you press up and down, it allows you to switch between your different audio sources. So while we're there, I'm just going to talk you through these real quick. So AM and FM, of course, you have with HD. The auxiliary input that I showed you in the center console. My Honda, this allows you to store music to the car. So if I had a CD that I plugged in or a USB, I could save some of that music to the car. In the hard drive, I've got a Bluetooth, so if I want to listen wirelessly, I can. Social media playlist, which I'll touch on in a second. But what that does is allows us all to connect up to Wi-Fi using an app that I'll show you here. And then from there, we could all add songs to a playlist on here, which there's actually a button for it that you would go to, right? So we'll touch on that a little bit here in a second. And then of course I have Sirius XM for 90 days free, Android Auto because that's what I'm using today, or Apple CarPlay depending on what you use, or you can access the rear entertainment system right here too. And then of course Apple CarPlay, the USBs, and then you're back to AM and FM. So just so you know what you have audio-wise available to you. Now, on the other side of the steering wheel, there's a couple of the Honda Sensei safety features here. So the first one is my cruise control. So I would press this button right here, and you'll see it, and it pops up on right here with a little icon. And this just essentially means, okay, it's on, but it's not set, right? So from there, I could set. So once I get up to speed, I could set it, and then it'll hold my speed for me. If I want to set the distance it keeps between me and cars in front of me, it'll use this right here. And what it's doing is bouncing the radar and the camera and then looking for those cars in front of you and determining that space. So if I set this, the more boxes you see up there, the more space it's going to keep between me and the car in front of me. So I'm just toggling through here so you can see different options, right? So very easy to understand. If you want to flip it over to classic cruise, just press and hold, and it'll flip and say cruise mode selected. And now it's just classic cruise, press and hold, and it'll flip back. Now down below that is lane keep assist. We talked about this earlier. When I engage this feature, you'll see these dotted lines up here. So right now you can see they're hollowed out. When they fill in solid, it means the camera's now actively reading the road, and that camera lives right up here, as I mentioned earlier. What it's doing is it's gonna detect those lines on the road. So as it picks them up, it'll keep you centered in your lane. So this is great. You know, if you get distracted, something happens, you spill your coffee, it'll prevent you from drifting into that car next to you just because you weren't paying attention. So that's the function of this feature. If you don't use your blinkers a lot, one, shame on you. And two, you're probably not gonna like this feature because it's gonna wanna correct and keep you centered in the lane because you're not indicating that you're trying to get over. So that is lane keep assist. Reminder, you do have to be going over 45 miles an hour for this feature to work. Now on the back of this, I do want to point out that you do have paddle shift in this car, which is kind of odd in Honda. Typically you see this in the sport trim level of vehicles to give you that little bit more control over the performance of the car. You have a 10-speed transmission though, so it'll allow you to upshift and downshift through this vehicle. So you can see right here, I've got a minus to downshift and the positive to upshift, I should say. So just giving you a little bit more control over the performance of the vehicle. Now the back side of this, I do have my lighting control, so auto on-off headlights, my fog lights, and then over here my windshield wipers down for the front, and then my rear right here. So let's talk about the touchscreen. All right, guys, so when it comes to using your touchscreen, I just want to walk you through some different features here real quick and explain exactly what they are. So the first being your navigation system here. So the car comes with built-in navigation through Garmin. So I just want to touch on this and let you know, right now I've got something already pulled up and, you know, taking us to a local grocery store, just so you could see and understand that I've got a compass here and several things that I can use. To end that, it's as simple as that. Press here and I can then search, and I've got a lot of different options as far as ways that I can search. So whether you want to search by category, if you're just looking for gas or restaurants in the area, you can absolutely do it. So very easy to use. It's Garmin. They've been doing it for years. If you don't want to use that, I will switch over and just show you real quick that I have Android Auto currently set up, but car also comes with Apple CarPlay, and I could use Google Maps, or I could jump over to Waze if I wanted to. So I have different options, right? So let me scroll down here and I could jump into my Waze setup if I wanted to. If you're an Apple Map user, you could do that additionally also. So I'm gonna jump back out of that screen here and go. All right, so the car does come with 90 days of a hotspot. After that, I believe it is $10 to $15 a month. So if you wanted to continue that service, you absolutely could. It's very easy to use. All you gotta do is turn on this power button once everything loads up. And then of course you can see your passwords and everything right there. So easy to understand. It's set up through AT&T. All you have to do is hop on their website and you can find it if you want to set the hotspot in your car. Now, two features that really make this car, you know, more unique and stand out from other cars such as a Pacifica and such as, you know, a Sienna are going to be right here. So first being your cabin watch, right? This gives me the ability to view my backseat drivers. And what's cool about this is that this is infrared too. So this will work at night. So even if I don't have any light back there, I can see them. So if something's going on, I have the ability to take a look and see what's going on. Additionally, you know, even if it's not your kids, it's your dogs, or if it's just cargo that's sliding around, right? I may have those all folded down. I can view this. And then when I'm jumping back over, Cabin Talk. So Cabin Talk's a really cool feature. I can turn this mic on and then I can then talk to the passengers in the back of the vehicle. So it will mic up them, and additionally it will work to their headphones, which is a really cool idea that it can do. So knowing that I can be talking to them while they're watching a DVD, so I'm not yelling or trying to tap them, is a fantastic feature to have. Right now, Android Auto, majority of cars either offer one or both at this point, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which Honda does offer. And this just gives me access to my maps, my music, my messages, you know, podcasts, all kinds of different things that I can access. So I'm gonna take a second real quick here and just throw you up some of the most popular apps that you'll find. So this way, if you're thinking, hey, what all can I use? What apps kind of translate over? Take a look, see if there's something that, you know, fancies you. And if there is, know that you could download that app that you see on the screen right now and use that concurrently, right? So now let's move back out of that and let's jump out of this. All right, so as we talked about the rear entertainment system earlier, we talked about the How Much Further app, but let's talk about what additionally you have. So of course I do have HDMI input, so if I wanted to plug in like a gaming system or do some different things, I absolutely could. It is a Blu-ray player, which actually exists up front here, so it's actually right down below me. And then on top of that, it will play CDs. So if I just wanted to listen to music, let's say you're still holding on to those CDs, you're one of the few, know that you have the advantage to use those. Of course, you can play Spotify through here and along with the iHeartMedia, but you also have the option to use these to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto additionally too. So just know that you have some features here, and then the USB that I could store things to and play, right? So now you understand the rear entertainment system. My Honda Music, this is really cool. If I'm plugging into one of the USBs, I would be able to import files and save those files to the computer system on the car. So it just allows me to store music to the car, right? Now, Social Playlist is a really cool feature. I really like this. What it does is it gives you the ability to all add songs to a playlist together, and you just have to be on the same Wi-Fi. So let's scroll over here. You've got FM. It does come with HD radio stations. I don't think I need to talk too much about that, but just know that you have it. And then secondarily, as we continue to move through, USBs we talked about, you can store music to. You do get 90 days of free satellite radio. You do have a trip computer that you can pull up here. Bluetooth audio, we all know how that works. System updates, right? Over here, I do have a small aux input, so the 9mm jack. And then of course I do have a clock where I can store wallpapers. I can even store my own image here, so if I wanted to do that, I could come over to clock wall, you know, faces. And then I could, you know, plug in a USB and add an additional image. So something cool that you can do in this car. Now, as we talked about, that SMS text function will read text aloud to you. If you have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto set up, it will also do that same feature and give you the ability to use that voice control button to, you know, send a response back. Now, Honda Link is really cool. When you first connect with your phone, one of the things it's going to question and ask you is, hey, in the event of a frontal collision, would you like us to be able to call 911 for you? So it's 100% free, and how that works is that if you do get an accident, they'll call down for you. If you don't answer, they can then call 911 and send them out to you, because they can use your GPS location, your make and model. So they're going to know a lot more about where you're at and what you're in to be able to describe that to EMS so they can get to you quicker. So a free safety feature here. Now, on top of that, you can use some additional features here. And if you go to HondaLink.com, you can see what those subscription-based services are, because you do get trials for some of them, like being able to start your car from your phone, and of course being able you know, to do the door locks from your phone additionally too. And then they offer like a concierge service, some other things related to that, right? So under settings, there is a couple things I always like to show you, and that's going to be under vehicle. Now, if I'm under the vehicle, this is where you can control your door locks and window locks. So I just like to point these out real quick. As you scroll through here, you can see door setup. Right now, the car is set up when I hit 10 miles an hour to automatically lock the doors. If I want to change that, I absolutely can. So depending on if I want to shift to park or turn it off. And then scrolling one more down, auto door unlock. When I'm getting out of the car, when the driver's side door open, it then unlocks the remaining doors of the car. Maybe your driver takes a little bit too long to get out and you want to change this to when the ignition turns off or out of park. So just know that these features are here, and I'll back out and show you exactly where I went. So If I back all the way out here, I go to settings. So let me come across the settings. From here, I'm gonna select vehicle, and then I would wanna go into here, and door setup is what I'm looking for, right? So just be aware that you have those features available to you if you wanna play with them. There are some nice options in here and different things that you can customize your car. Now, other than that, I will jump out of that screen. That's kind of the rundown of the touchscreen, so you have a general understanding below. You'll see your tri-zone climate control. If I want to pull it up on the screen, I can control it right from here, or I can control it from the buttons here, and I can jump into my rear controls right here too. And of course, I can lock the rear controls, right? Past that, you can shift the temperature up and down from right here. So just know, it's very easy to understand. All right, guys, so hopefully this helps you really understand what the Odyssey is about and some of the different options that it has as far as availability, as far as functionality, that makes it stand out from some of the other SUVs and some of the minivans that are out there on the market. So quickly, I just want to kind of refresh and review over a couple of things that we talked about. So the first thing I'm gonna do is start you at the very back of the car as far as cargo space. So I'm gonna throw that comparison back up on the screen so that you can see how it competes against some of the other minivans out there on the market as far as cargo space goes. Now, after you've looked at that, I'm gonna talk about if you fold down that third row and look at that additional or extended cargo space, let's look at a comparison there too to some of the other minivans out there on the market so you can get an understanding. Now, after that, let's move into the second row. Now, we know that the second row is on that rail system, so I can remove seats, I can slide it across back and forth, which makes it incredibly unique compared to pretty much anything else out there on the market. I don't know that a lot of other vehicles offer that, whether it's an SUV or a minivan, so know that you have that to take advantage of. And then on top of that, I want to show you a comparison as far as the second row leg space that you have. So I'm going to throw that on the screen so you can see how it compares to the other minivans out there in the market. Now, moving past that, I want to go to the front row. Of course, you've got plenty of space up here. It reminds me of sitting in the cockpit of like a starship, which I don't know what would remind me. I've never sat in the front of a cockpit of a starship, but if I had, this is what I think it would be like. So legroom, I'm gonna throw that comparison up on the screen so you can understand how it competes against those other minivans out there on the market. Now, we talked about all the other minivans. What we didn't talk about was how does it compete against like the Honda Pilot, right? So I'm gonna just kind of go back to those and touch on those things. So I'll throw the comparison up as far as the cargo space in the very back, so you can get an understanding for that. And then afterwards, I'm gonna go, hey, let's look at that extended cargo space so you can see the comparison of the Odyssey and the Pilot there. Now, second row, the second row on the Passport is not removable. And let's talk about the second row for a second. I have these sliding doors that I can automatically open. In a parking lot, do you know how much easier it is to use those sliding doors? One, your kids can get in easier, especially if they're smaller. It's lower to the ground and gives them more access to get in on their own. Whereas in a in a Passport or in a Pilot, you may have to help them up into the car. So one, it's giving your kids more accessibility into the car and being able to do it on their own. Secondarily, if you have car seats, getting them in and out with a door open on like a Passport or Pilot is kind of hard to do. And I dare you to find a space where you don't have a car on the other side of you to where you're trying to do it in minimal space. This with the sliding doors gives you a massive amount of opening to get those car seats in and out of. Once you get past that car seat age, then it's just a matter of, hey, I'm not only taking my kids to practices, but now I'm taking my kids and their friends' kids, right? So it kind of turns into this, I've got a lot of people in my car, so having something this size that has a lot of versatility as far as seating really makes it stand out past the Passport and the Pilot. Now, outside of that, you have that extra, in the back, you can flip it down and you've got the lounger mode that you can use if you're out there at practices, watching baseball games, soccer games, whatever it may be to take advantage of, or if you're just using it for camping because you're an active family. So there are a lot of things that the Odyssey offers, especially in versatility when it comes to seating arrangement, and then just general for kids, right? They can get in the doors. These doors have sensors on them to where if you stick a hand in it, it won't automatically close and slam and crush those fingers, which I think as kids, most of us probably know as adults, the Passport and the Pilot don't offer that as well. And it's even on the back in the tailgate. So knowing that you have just a lot of extra planning and thought out for kids makes this really stand out compared to a lot of the SUVs out there in the market. If you can get past your pride and letting you own a minivan, which I understand, I get it. It's not the most beautiful thing to look at and it's a lot of money to spend. But when it comes down to it, the nuts and bolts, this really does make a lot more sense than an SUV. And if we're being honest, I think most of us can kind of see that when I see a family and I see some mom or dad in an SUV with 9 kids piling out, there's really no difference between that and an SUV. You still look like a soccer mom or a soccer dad. So it is what it is. We have to live with it. But past that, I would highly recommend this car. It makes sense for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And generationally, I see, people buy this when they have little kids, and then as the kids grow, they end up keeping it because now it's their kids and other kids, and they're traveling and they're going to practices and AAU games and whatever it may be. So it just ends up making a lot of sense for a long period of time. So the investment ends up being worth the money. If you don't believe me, ask someone who's owned an Odyssey. Chances are they've probably owned more than one, and they'd probably recommend that you buy one, even if you are looking at like a Pilot, which maybe they've switched to from now if their kids are grown or maybe not.
Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed the video that I just made as far as comparing the Honda Odyssey to some of the competition out there, and then additionally comparing that vehicle to the Honda Pilot. So you can kind of get an understanding of, hey, if I do want to own a Honda and I know that, but I'm not sure if I should go Pilot or if I should go Odyssey, hopefully this helps you out. I do have a couple favors to ask you though. One, I hope that you'll like the video. It just makes me warm and fuzzy inside to know that somebody else liked what I put out there. And then secondarily, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you feel like I missed something, or if I would have touched on something, or maybe there's a tip or trick or something to this vehicle that you can relate to, that you wish that others knew about, share it. Let me know so that I can share it with others. And then lastly, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. Let me tell you about Hondas. I love finding out new stuff about them, I love learning about them, and I love sharing it with everybody out there in the world. So I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel so that I can share it with you. Other than that, I want to say thank you again for watching. I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Later, guys!